Hey everybody, it's Gabriel with Automation Anywhere here at the Imagine Studio. And once again, I have another very special guest. Today, right now, live and in the flesh, I'm joined by our very own CTO, Mr. Prince Kohli. Prince, how are you?
I am doing great, Gabe. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Prince, Imagine was less than a year ago, and what a difference a year makes. Talk to me a little bit about the experience this year, the conversations with customers and partners, obviously around AI and automation. How is it different this year than last year?
I think that is probably the biggest difference that we see. Last year, AI was the talk, but it wasn't yet the walk. So I think for many of them, they were beginning to explore, learn, but they were still skittish. And this year, it's just completely different. Most people have explored it fully. Many people have deployed it. And I would say almost to a T, they all want to expand. For them, Gen AI has now become this new way of incorporating their own data, their own processes to do many, many more big things than they were not able to do last year. So lots of excitement, lots of excellent conversations. So very big difference from last year.
I mean, it's an exciting time.
Yes.
But with that excitement, with the ability to so quickly deploy many of these models, say, and as they're experimenting and whatnot, it seems also, even in our own practice and what I've even done, I'm realizing, okay, this could get a little chaotic in the amount of data that's being processed and ingested, protecting that data. There's cost issues, and I think to fully realize sort of at an enterprise level, the efficiency, the growth, the true value of all this, shameless plug, but what I've found with our platform is that specifically in the governance side, having that visibility and the controls in place are actually going to enable the growth. Talk to me a little bit about the new system and what that does for the customers.
I'm happy to, because I think that is a big difference that people see in our approach versus, I would say, others who just bring the foundation models. So the I would say, two pillars that our customers look at us for and how we distinguish ourselves. So one is what I call the governance plus pillar. So what that means to us is that you're going to use foundation models. You're going to use, to fine tune it, you have to use your own data. That is your private data. Then at some point you may be building your own AI models as well. And you're going to be using prompts. All that data is data that may leak, because that is the nature of how you call these foundation models. That is super scary to customers. They cannot even accept a 0.1% probability that may happen. So it is extremely important that the guardrails be defined for them, the guardrails be strict, they be auditable. So what they can do with us is they can say, I must have these constraints, and we allow them to put those constraints in place, we allow them to test for those constraints, and we allow them to get comfortable, and their auditors to get comfortable that these constraints are being met. And these specifically have to do with their own private data, their own customers' private data, like PII data. So that becomes a very big deal. And the second part, which is the plus part of governance, is I still want to use my private data to make better decisions, right? I want to use techniques such as RAG, right, to be able to say, how do I get a high quality input and low hallucinations? So you still want to allow them to use it, and that we also allow them to use. Then the second pillar is, now I have the data, I can make some good decisions, but what do I do with it? And that's where our own kind of secret sauce, our own process model that we have used across 300 million automations that we have seen over the last 2 years, that model comes into play. We use that to drive their workflows, because that is the action layer. The foundation models cannot do the action layer. Customers, of course, cannot do the action layer. So we can take the action layer across their own enterprise applications of any sort, of any kind, and while keeping data secure, be able to operate across all of them. And that is a big difference that customers are seeing.
When I think about it, there's sort of two things. There's the freedom of choice, which I think is extraordinary. We're not locked in, and we allow you, which has underpinned what we offer since day one, right? I mean, the freedom of choice, so you can operate across all of your enterprise apps. So, but with the freedom of choice and with the power of the models comes great responsibility.
That's right.
If I'm doing my Marvel Comics bit, but that responsibility piece to be able to, and that responsibility is to one, protect, but two, produce, right, and produce at a true enterprise level. So these aren't task automations using AI. This is end-to-end processes. Talk to me a little bit about. You mentioned the process models that we have. Dive into that a little bit and unpack what that really means for the customer.
Sure. Now we have thousands of customers over many years. So what we have learned using the metadata from those processes is how a process in a finance industry, in a healthcare industry, learn typical processes, typical next steps, next best actions. What is when you start a process of a particular kind, whether it be a closing statement, monthly closing or something else, we know what you would like to do after that. So we can very quickly put a process template together. We can quickly put the automations inside it. We can help you build it at 10x faster, some very large magnitude faster. We can also let you work with the autopilot that says I can understand your commands in English, for example, and say I would like to build a finance closing process, and we know what that means, and we can again, bring the applications together, have them work for you, and that others cannot do because they do not have that data that we have. They do not know which applications, in what order, how to operate them. We can do all of that, and that is the secret sauce that we have, and our customers are able to leverage on day one.
And that idea of 10xing value, doubling productivity, it's a very real thing, and it's real right now.
That's right. It's here right now. I was talking to a very large customer yesterday, and they were presenting in one of our sessions, and it was about helping financial planners, and how financial planners have so many constraints on data, but at the same time, they use so many automation technologies with AI, whether it is document automation, whether it is data masking of the right sort, and for them, uh, be able to help their customers faster. During tax time, they are all running, they're all running very hard. For them to be able to help 2x customers, right, as opposed to only 1x customers, that can make the difference of a life and day in their businesses, in their small businesses. So this is becoming real for them. And one more thought I want to provide people is sometimes people say foundation models are all I need. And there is one of the more important things they miss is not just that they don't have an action layer, but also to get the foundation models to work for you. You need to be able to tune them with your data, and if you don't have controls over, you will lose access to your own data, and they will become part of the foundation model itself, and that is very dangerous.
Give me your top 3 tips. What does everyone need to know? The 3 things every business leader needs to know.
Top 3 tips, top 3 questions, I will say. The top 3 things they have to ask themselves and how they operate. One is, I would always start with the problem statement. What problem I as a customer am trying to solve? I think if you start with that and not say, I always want to use Gen AI or always want to use AI, that will be better. What problem? Second, what outcome do I want to measure? And I am deliberately trying to say in customer terms how it matters, because we can solve many problems, but the customer must know what they're trying to, what are they trying to do. So therefore, what problem, what outcome? And then make sure that vendors like us, partners like us, we are brought in and that detail is provided, because we are very confident, right? Given we do this with thousands of customers, we are very confident we can do this better, faster, things that you did not even imagine, could work. Bring us in and ask us to show them. Come in and prove it to me. So I think that we bring in the AI and Gen AI pieces as well. We bring in the entire automation platform. But I think it's imagination sometimes, that I think they have to soar and figure out what is the art of the possible.
The art of the possible is key, and I think to your point, with all of the data, with all of the experience we have, maybe the problem isn't unique. But I also love this idea too, going back to what you said about the finance company helping the smaller businesses, et cetera. This idea of, one, that being a competitive advantage in the marketplace and an increasingly competitive
100%.
marketplace,
Yeah.
to be able to process on the back end and provide services faster, more accurately, more securely. But also, I love this idea too of thinking, I don't want to just, it's easy to say, you know what, let's automate invoice processing. Okay. But what you're talking about is a higher level than that. Invoice processing is a task automation or a workflow, but there's a bigger stack of things in the problem statement that we can now solve all of those things if you really imagine what's possible.
That is right. And just to extend that, invoice processing is not just taking the invoice. It's about before the invoice, getting the invoice in the right place, storing it correctly, parsing it correctly, then taking the actions after the invoice to make sure they're done well, and it should scale. It should be able to keep access control, authentication, keep your data private. All those things are not going to be done by everyone. And there are very few platforms. Ours is probably the only one which can do all of that.
Yeah, I remember last year speaking with one of our customers, one of the biggest food manufacturers in the world, and them talking about how they operate, and they have different entities, and many of our customers operate this way, right? Different entities in different countries. So when it comes to finance in particular, invoicing, et cetera, different invoice formats, not only different invoice formats, but different tax rates, all this myriad of unique unstructured data.
That's right.
And now I'm thinking, like, I can't wait to talk to them again to see, how much more they're able to accomplish.
That's right. And if you heard Mehir's keynote, if you look at the Gen 3 of automation where we are, now we're not talking about just millions of dollars. We're talking tens to hundreds of millions of dollars impact. That is how Gen AI is helping us in achieving the new frontiers of automation.
It's truly a game changer. Prince, thank you so much for taking some time for me today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate
Same here,
it.
Gabe. I enjoyed it. Thank you.